Why, hello there, I'm Professor Joel, and welcome to another episode of Planet Scooby Reviews. Today we are covering the Dynamic Scooby-Doo Affair, and this is the second episode of the new Scooby Doo movies, and it originally aired on September 16th, 1972. This episode sees the gang hooking up with Batman and Robin as they encounter a counterfeit scheme involving a disappearing house. We also get a surprise visit by two classic Batman villains. Batman and Robin and the villains who pop up in this episode are all voiced by their Superfriends voice actors. Watching this now, I was a little more familiar with the Adam West live-action TV show Batman voice, so I was a little shocked hearing the classic Superfriends voice, but this makes a lot more sense having the classic Superfriends actors voice them because Superfriends was popular back in the 70s. I remember watching it. I had an old antenna and you had to go and you had to change a dial on your TV and it would spin your antenna to get this channel, and it's a little bit fuzzy on my TV, but I remember they always aired this around 6:30 in the morning on the Saturday in reruns. I'm not old enough to have seen it when it originally aired for the most part, but I remember watching reruns pretty early in the morning. And yeah, these voice actors do match up. So this episode feels, because they have the same voice actors and such, this episode feels like, I don't know if it feels like a Scooby-Doo episode or a Batman and Robin Super Friends episode. I guess it has the perfect balance of both. There's also a pretty fun part in this where Batman says his famous line, in Super Friends at least, "Robin, to the Batmobile." And Freddy follows up with, "Kids, to the Mystery Machine."
Robin, to the Batmobile. Kids, to the Mystery Machine.
I thought that was funny. And then another fun touch is that in between scenes where we get fade outs and fade ins, we get the spinning Batman insignia. I thought that was super cool, and it just added a clever touch and some extra care to this episode. For the most part, the animation's pretty good for this episode. I remember the last episode I reviewed with the Three Stooges, there was tons of glitches. This one's not so bad, has some cool shots as well. This also marks the first episode where Jinkies is used, but it's not Velma who says it, it's Shaggy.
Jinkies!
Anyway, despite some cool guest stars, does this make for a pretty cool Scooby-Doo episode? Let's find out. The episode begins with the gang headed to the Mystery Club convention in the Mystery Machine.
Oh, wow. Now we'll never get to the Mystery Club convention on time.
That is one convention I would love to see. Unfortunately, though, while traveling through Gotham, they hit a bump in the road and this causes their headlights to become disconnected from the vehicle's battery. So they have to stop because it's nighttime and Freddy can no longer see where he is driving. Overhead, they see a large airplane that swoops down and lands near them. Inside, they see the plane crew unload some gear. Since the plane landed at night with no lights on, they find it rather suspicious, so they follow the crew to an old house. The crew flies off after delivering the crate, so the gang walk into the house because they think it's abandoned. And there they see the crate strapped to the floor, and they find this rather unusual. Outside, they hear a car pull up, so the gang hide until they see Batman and Robin show up.
Suspecting that someone might be smuggling contraband into the country, we followed the plane on our Batmobile radar scope.
Once they see that it is Batman and Robin, they reveal themselves, and Batman and Robin explain that they were suspicious about the airplane as well, so they decided to investigate. They hear a noise upstairs, and an elderly lady walks down, and the lady introduces herself as Mrs. Baker.
Someone's upstairs.
Who's down there?
Good evening, madam. Please forgive us for intruding.
I'm Mrs. Baker.
Can you tell us what's in that crate?
Mrs. Baker is quite alarmed that there's this crate in the middle of her room, and Batman opens it up and finds a punch clown. Everyone laughs at first, and then Scooby gives it a punch, which breaks it open, and they discover counterfeit money inside. Batman knows it's counterfeit money because President Lincoln is wearing a turtleneck sweater. Otherwise, the bill is almost accurate. The gang, along with Batman and Robin, go outside to look for clues, and Mrs. Baker notices some tracks that are headed off towards the auto junkyard. She also warns them that there's a cemetery next door to the junkyard, so they should be careful.
The criminal may have driven it to the auto junkyard just down the road.
At the junkyard, they find some fresh footprints, and everyone splits up to look for more clues. Freddy and the girls watch Robin climb up a crane, and Shaggy and Scooby run into a hooded man with green eyes. Some hijinks occur with mainly Fred trying to capture the hooded person, but he fails and he gets the hood put on him where he is apprehended by Batman and Robin.
Fred, what happened?
Hey, what happened?
Someone threw a hood over me. The next thing I knew, Batman and Robin were trying to pull me apart.
After they realize Freddy isn't the hooded person, they head back to Mrs. Baker's house, but by the time they get there, the farmhouse has vanished along with the Batmobile.
It's gone.
Holy Houdini. How can a whole house disappear like that?
This could be a case of group hypnosis. Was there really a house? Was there actually a Mrs. Baker? Or was it all some kind of dream?
It was no dream.
Fortunately, there's a tracker in the Batmobile, so the gang head back to the Batcave, blindfolded, where they can track it on the Bat computer.
We'd be glad to give you a lift to the Batcave in our mystery machine.
We don't mind being blindfolded.
Yeah, baby.
Could I get a little snack?
Bat milk and cookies for everyone.
In the Batcave, Scooby and Shaggy enjoy some Bat cookies and some Bat milk. Batman and Robin watch the Batmobile being dropped off at the Gotham amusement park, and they all head off to the amusement park to pick it up. At the amusement park, they find the Batmobile, but Scooby and Shaggy also see the Joker and the Penguin in the window of a haunted house attraction. Now, everyone realizes who's behind these shenanigans. Batman and Robin head into the haunted house to apprehend these dangerous criminals. Inside the haunted house, the Joker tries his best to scare off Batman and Robin.
They're inside. We've got 'em, Penguin. This time the Joker will have the last laugh.
What's that?
Merely sound effects, Robin.
They're not falling for your hokey, haunting howls. Now let's get the funny money and make our lives sunny.
And then he lures them into a room of doom where Batman and Robin fall down an elevator shaft into a pit they cannot get out of. Now it's up to the gang to rescue our dynamic duo. Entering the haunted house, we get more hokey hijinks and traps by the Joker and the Penguin. At one point, the Joker and the Penguin even dress up as glow-in-the-dark skeletons. Scooby, seeing the Joker and Penguin in skeleton suits, makes him hungry because he thinks of bones, so he chases them and they too fall down the elevator shaft and end up in the pit with Batman and Robin.
A door! Inside! Quick!
Vertebrae! We've got visitors!
Oh, drat!
The gang eventually rescue Batman and Robin and they capture the Joker and the Penguin at the same time, only to find out the Joker and the Penguin aren't even behind this counterfeit scheme, and they were just the middlemen in this operation. Batman passes the Joker and Penguin off to the Gotham City detectives, and everyone else goes off to find Mrs. Baker at her farmhouse.
Robin, to the Batmobile. Kids, to the mystery machine.
The house is back though, and the bedroom window light is on, so they split up and enter the house from every entrance as they are worried about Mrs. Baker. Scooby and Shaggy, however, stay outside because, they're chickens. And Scooby and Shaggy run into a fuzzy bunny that scares Scooby, and he triggers a secret passage trap lever, and that sends the house back underground. We get some cool shots of the gang and Batman walking around the house that is now upside down until Shaggy makes the house reappear, and the house flip-flops a few more times until everyone reunites and they investigate further. In the basement of the house, they find an underground cave system that leads to a warehouse full of toys. The hooded person shows up once more and he stalks the gang throughout the warehouse and uses multiple toys to confuse the gang and Batman and Robin. Eventually, after a long chase, they capture the hooded figure with the green eyes, and it turns out to be Mrs. Baker.
Before the cops come to take him away, Batman, make them tell us what happened to Mrs. Baker.
Well,
You fools, Mrs. Baker didn't vanish. She's been here all the time.
Mrs. Baker!
Then you were the counterfeiter.
And I still would be if it weren't for that dumb dog.
She was behind the counterfeit scheme the entire time. As a reward, Batman gives Scooby some more Bat cookies.
Bat milk and cookies for everyone.
I give this episode a 7 out of 10. I really dug this episode. While it's still mostly focused on comedy, we get some really cool environments, such as the junkyard, the toy warehouse. My favorite was the haunted amusement park, and we get the rotating and disappearing house, or the flip-flop house, or whatever you want to call it. I thought it was a clever episode in how the Joker and the Penguin are just patsies. They're not behind the mystery. We find out like 3/4 of the way through, oh, there's another villain behind all this. I thought that was cool. And Mrs. Baker, who was the real villain, she was suspicious from the get-go, but it's a cartoon, so, as a kid, it probably fooled me, but as an adult, it probably fooled me too, but I saw this a few times since, and I probably remembered she was the main bad guy and such. Batman in this is super camp and very hokey. Not as cheesy as the 70s Adam West Batman, but he's pretty hokey in that he over-explains everything in this. And Robin's pretty hokey as well. He's always like, holy whatever and whatever, Batman. And Robin's voiced by Casey Kasem, and he sounds a little similar to Shaggy, maybe a little more mature, but otherwise it gets a little confusing between the two when they're talking. They did a good job of kind of separating their voices, though, so it didn't get too confusing. I've also been watching the 90s animated Batman series right now, so I'm kind of used to that Batman, and this was a big contrast, but I remember Superfriends, and I remember liking this Batman and pretending to be this Batman as a kid. So it just makes me want to watch Superfriends again, and I probably will soon. The Joker sounded a bit off too, but I got used to his voice. He sounded kind of like Mr. Howell from Gilligan's Island, or like a Bowery boy, or like an old-timey mobster from New York or whatever. But yeah, I got used to his voice.
Now let's get the funny money and make our lives sunny.
But there wasn't much differentiation between him and the Penguin, really. You could have, if you watch this blindfolded, you wouldn't really know who was who, because they're both kind of crack jokes and such. Ted Knight actually does the voice of the Penguin, and he does a good job. I just think, as a Batman villain, he wasn't scripted right. I like Ted Knight a lot. He's one of my favorite actors. There was an old sitcom from the 80s called Too Close for Comfort that Ted Knight was on. And I remember he passed away mid-season or before one season started up. And I was sad because I used to enjoy that show as a child. So I remember having a fondness for Ted Knight early on in my life. And I loved him again also in the movie Caddyshack, where he played the cranky judge.
Do you know what gophers can do to a golf course?
And I don't really have any complaints about this episode. It's pretty good, but it would be better if it was 22 minutes versus 44 minutes. There's just a lot of padding, a lot of filler, a lot of things stretched out, and again, it kind of focused on the comedy. Why I did enjoy this, though, is that it did find the perfect balance between a Batman episode and a Scooby-Doo episode. This could go either way. It's not a Scooby-Doo episode, and it's not really a Batman episode. It's a good marriage between the two. Anyway, that wraps up my review, so 7 out of 10. And once again, I want to thank you for any likes, views, and subscribes. These episodes do take me a long time to do. I spend all week making them, a couple hours every day. It takes a while to cut the videos in a way that it won't get blocked or censored or taken down from YouTube. So that's where the majority of my work is. And your support for the channel just keeps me going, keeps me happy, keeps me going on with these. And I enjoy looking at my stats every week and seeing my count going up. And I don't make a dime off this, but it's nice to know that people are appreciating what I'm doing. Next week, I will be covering the episode Wednesday is Missing, which is kind of fitting because that episode is actually missing from the Blu-ray set due to a copyright dispute. Anyway, until next week, stay spooky.